The anime begins by showing a boy named Tanjiro Kamado, who lives with his family in the snowy mountains. Despite living a simple life every day, Tanjiro always helps his family's economy by selling charcoal in the nearby town. Still, he and his family live their lives full of gratitude. Towards the end of the year, as usual, Tanjiro would go to a nearby town to sell charcoal. Actually, his mother asked him to stay at home because the weather was very cold and heavy snow was covering the streets. Seeing the sincerity of Tanjiro's heart, his mother could not do anything to prevent his departure. Even so, she's very grateful to have a son like him, who loves and cares for his family. Moreover, Tanjiro is gentle and kind-hearted, so even his younger siblings love him very much. Arriving in the city, Tanjiro received a fairly good reception from the residents, who had known him for a long time as a charcoal seller. Not only is he known as a boy who is always well-behaved, diligent, and hardworking, but he is also known to have a keen sense of smell, so he can accurately ascertain any object he smells. He also often helps the residents, so his presence in the city is quite liked by the residents. After the merchandise sold out, Tanjiro decided to hurry home, even though it was already night. However, when passing the house of a resident named Saburo, who is on the edge of the forest, he is asked to spend the night at his house because it is very dangerous if he goes through the forest at night. Tanjiro was about to politely decline Saburo's request, but he was very adamant, and a look of fear appeared on his face when he said that the demons would be roaming around at night. After dinner, Saburo tells him about a man-eating demon that always appears after sunset. Saburo says that demons can enter human homes and prey on them. Even so, the townspeople weren't too worried because the demon slayers had always been ready to help them kill the demons all this time. However, he doesn't seem to believe Saburo's words about the existence of demons and thinks that Saburo is just lonely because he lives alone after his entire family dies. Tanjiro plans to invite his brothers to visit Saburo's house so that their presence can cure his loneliness. The next morning, Tanjiro thanked Saburo for letting him spend the night at his house and returned to continue his journey toward the mountains. However, when he was about to arrive at his house, Tanjiro smelled a very strong smell of blood coming from his house. Because of that, he ran to the house, and how surprised he was when he saw his house was in disarray and his family was already covered in blood. Seeing that, Tanjiro immediately checked the condition of his mother and his younger brothers and was devastated to learn they had all died. He also checked the condition of his younger sister, Nezuko, who was still breathing, but her condition was very pathetic. Without thinking, he rushed to take her to the nearest town so that she got medical treatment and her life could be saved. Unexpectedly, Nezuko suddenly turns into a demon, attacking Tanjiro and trying to prey on him. He was very surprised to see the drastic changes experienced by his sister and tried to withstand her attack with all his might. He also tries to convince Nezuko not to attack him, and slowly, she seems to be shedding tears, which indicates that she is starting to remember him. Suddenly, a young man named Ju Tomioka appears, who is a demon slayer. Ju attacked Nezuko and was about to behead her because she had turned into a demon. However, Tanjiro begged Ju so he would not hurt his sister. Tanjiro promises to try to heal Nezuko, even though it sounds impossible to Ju. Seeing him so easily prostrate to someone, Ju becomes annoyed and then scolds Tanjiro, who he considers a useless person. He provokes Tanjiro by thrusting his sword into Nezuko's body, hoping that Tanjiro will fight back to save his sister instead of bowing down and begging for forgiveness. Ju's efforts to raise Tanjiro's fighting spirit seem to have paid off, as he gets up, picks up his axe, and manipulates attacks to trick Ju, as he realizes he won't be able to defeat Ju. Although, in the end, Ju managed to bring down Tanjiro very easily, his axe attack almost hit Ju's head if he didn't dodge immediately. On the other hand, Nezuko became very angry because Ju dropped her brother, so she attacked him and tried to protect Tanjiro. Seeing this, Ju was astonished because all this time, the hungry demons had always preyed on anyone near them, including their own families. If you look at the wounds suffered by Nezuko, she needs human flesh and blood to restore her body condition. But she chose to protect Tanjiro. Upon learning that, Ju decided to keep her alive, and only made her faint, and laid her on the side of the unconscious Tanjiro. When Tanjiro finally wakes up, Ju tells him to go to Mount Sajiri and meet a man named Sakonji Urokadaki, who is Ju's mentor. Besides that, Ju told him to stay away from direct sunlight because it could endanger Nezuko's life. After saying that, Ju then left him and his sister. After that, Tanjiro and Nezuko returned home to bury their mother and siblings properly. Knowing that she should not be exposed to the sun, he then buys an old basket from a farmer and covers it with bamboo and straw to carry her when they have to travel during the day. Soon afterwards, they begin their journey to Mount Sajiri to meet Sakonji Urokodaki, according to Ji's advice. On the way, when they were walking through the forest at night, Tanjiro smelled the pungent smell of blood from a nearby shrine. Realizing that someone might be in danger, he ran towards the shrine and was very surprised to see a group of people who had been slaughtered by a bloodthirsty demon. On the other hand, Nezuko, who saw the corpse lying in front of her, tried to suppress her hunger because after she became a demon, she had not eaten human flesh at all, so her hunger became even more intense. The demon that carried out the massacre is apparently still there and immediately attacks Tanjiro, trying to devour him. Seeing this, Nezuko did not remain silent and immediately kicked the demon's head until it was decapitated. Even so, the demon could still move its body. Even a pair of hands had grown from its severed head. The demon seemed so angry that Nezuko, a demon like him, helped humans instead of preying on them. A fierce battle ensued between Tanjiro and Nezuko against the demon, until finally, he managed to trap the demon's head with his axe and tried to help Nezuko, who seemed overwhelmed by the headless body. They were finally able to make the headless body of the demon fall from a height and stop moving. After that, Tanjiro planned to kill the demon's head, but he immediately became hesitant and felt sorry for the demon, even though he had slaughtered many people. Not long after, Sakonji Urokodaki appears and orders Tanjiro to kill the demon. But then, the sun began to rise, and its rays instantly burned the demon's head to nothing. Seeing Tanjiro's sluggish attitude and not daring to make a decision at a crucial moment made Sakonji feel disappointed and did not hesitate to slap him. Even so, Sakonji will still take Tanjiro and his sister to his residence and train him to become the demon slayer, as stated in the letter Ju sent to him. Arriving at Mount Sajiri, Sakonji did not allow Tanjiro to relax and immediately took him up the mountain to begin his training. Sakonji told him to descend the mountain, arrive at his house before sunrise, and then disappear in front of him. At first, Tanjiro thought he could go down the mountain easily because he had a keen sense of smell. But it turns out that Sakonji has prepared a lot of traps around there, so he has been caught in a trap several times. Not only that, but Tanjiro also noticed that the air was starting to thin out, so he was having trouble breathing, and his vision was getting blurry. He began to focus on catching his breath and sharpened his senses to detect traps hidden around him. Long story short, after struggling down the mountain while avoiding traps, Tanjiro finally returned to Sakonji's residence just before sunrise. Seeing the ability and strong determination he possessed by him, Sakonji finally felt sure that he had the potential to become a formidable demon slayer in the future. After that, Sakonji explains his profession as a cultivator to Tanjiro and how to join the Demon Slayer Corps by surviving the final selection in Mount Fujikasane. To prepare Tanjiro for this trial and to see if he is worthy of even being able to participate in it, Sakonji begins to train him in the way of the sword. Sakonji explains the intricacies of the weapon and the forces behind it. Alongside this, Sakonji trains Tanjiro in proper breathing techniques named water breathing, which mimics water, specifically the flow, flexibility, and adaptability of the liquid and replicates it with the user's movements, techniques, and abilities. Most, if not all, known techniques involve the user bending their body, arm and weapon in a fluid motion to match the movements of rushing or flowing water. As time goes by, Tanjiro's physical abilities have improved significantly, and he has become more proficient in swordsmanship. Finally, after a year has passed, Sakonji tells Tanjiro that he has nothing more to teach him, instructing Tanjiro to prove himself by improving the basics he has been taught. Sakonji then leads Tanjiro to a huge boulder, telling him that if he can cut it in half, he will be permitted to go to the final selection. Day after day, he tries to split the huge boulder, muster all his strength, and do everything Sakonji has taught him. However, until 6 months have passed, Tanjiro has not succeeded in splitting the huge boulder. One day, when he was hopeless and wanted to give up, he suddenly met a mysterious boy wearing a fox mask. Unexpectedly, the boy then attacks Tanjiro and manages to knock him out. He gets into a fierce fight with the mysterious boy, who can easily push him, even though the boy only uses a wooden sword. Meanwhile, Tanjiro uses a real sword. In the end, the mysterious boy wins the fight, making him fall unconscious. Upon awakening, Tanjiro meets a young girl who introduces herself as Makomo, who tells him that the boy he fought just now was Sabito. She reveals that she and Sabito were orphans adopted by Sakonji. After that, Makomo pointed out the fault in Tanjiro's fighting technique, making it easy for Sabito to defeat him. Sometime later, Makomo and Sabito continue to train Tanjiro by sparring so that he gets used to the fight. 6 months later, he challenges Sabito to a fight with him using a real sword. That night, Sabito appears with a real sword and prepares to fight Tanjiro. However, when he made an attack first by drawing his sword right into Sabito's face, the mask worn by Sabito split open suddenly, revealing his face smiling in relief when Tanjiro finally managed to defeat him. Tanjiro then turned to Makomo, who was showing the same happy expression, and cheered on him before she disappeared into the mist, as did Sabito. After the two of them left, Tanjiro finally realized that he had succeeded in splitting the huge boulder into 2 parts. He could do that because he could pick up the scent of a thread to an opening, and the thread would lead his blade to the opponent's weak spot, so he managed to defeat his opponent. Shortly afterwards, Sakonji approached Tanjiro and praised him for successfully splitting the huge boulder and being stronger than before. He finally gives permission to Tanjiro to take part in the final selection on Mount Fujikase. Hearing this, Tanjiro could not contain his happiness and hugged his master with tears in his eyes. In the evening, Sakonji makes a delicious dinner to celebrate Tanjiro's success in completing all his training. Tanjiro looks happy and thanks his master. However, Sakonji worries about Tanjiro's safety because he will face a formidable opponent in the final selection. Even if Tanjiro manages to graduate and become the Demon Slayer, he will also face demons whose powers are far more terrifying. Even so, Sakonji hopes that he can become the great Demon Slayer and succeeds in realizing his wish to heal Nezuko. Sakonji then gave a fox mask to him, the same one given to all his students, including Sabito and Makomo. The next day, Tanjiro rushed to Mount Fujikase to participate in the final selection. Arriving there, he seemed to admire the beauty of the wisteria flowers that bloomed very beautifully even though it was not in season. After all the participants in the final selection had gathered, the 2 young girls who were the exam organizers told them all that Mount Fujikase was full of demons captured by the Demon Slayers. However, the demons could not escape anywhere because there was a wisteria flower blooming, which the demons hated the most. And from this point onward, there will be no wisteria blossoms, so the demons may appear. The participants are only required to survive for 7 days in the place, and whoever manages to survive will be declared to have passed the test. When the test finally begins, Tanjiro rushes towards the east and takes advantage of the sunlight, which is the devil's weakness. But in the middle of the journey, he sniffed 2 nearby demons, who turned out to be fighting each other for him as prey. Tanjiro stays strong and prepared to face the demons until he finally defeats them. But then, a terrible demon called the Hand Demon appeared, who instantly devoured a participant whole. Tanjiro is very scared, but must muster all his courage to face the demon. Knowing he was a student of Sakonji, the Hand Demon was furious and arrogantly declared that he had killed 13 Sakonji students, including Sabito and Makomo. Upon hearing that, Tanjiro became very angry and immediately launched a barrage of attacks at the demon. During the fight, Tanjiro finally saw the scent of thread and knew his opponent's weakness, so he decided to behead the Hand Demon. The scene then switches to the past, which shows a boy who turns into a demon and begins to prey on humans. One day, the demon boy met Sakonji, still the Demon Slayer. Without thinking, Sakonji attacked him and finally managed to knock him out. The flash is the past of the Hand Demon, who is currently fighting with Tanjiro. In the end, the Hand Demon met its end at the hands of Tanjiro, a student of Sakonji, who had once defeated him. After being defeated, the Hand Demon's body gradually turned to ashes, and the spirits of the participants killed by the demon were finally able to go quietly to the afterlife. At the same time, Tanjiro gets a glimpse of the boy's past before turning into a demon, which turns out to be so pitiful that Tanjiro takes pity on the Hand Demon. In the following days, Tanjiro tries to survive by facing the demons who continue to attack him at night. When fighting with them, Tanjiro tried to ask about how to turn a demon back into a normal human, which of course, did not get any answer. Tanjiro finally arriving at the place where the participants first gathered before starting the exam, which was now full of blooming wisteria flowers, indicating the exam was over. Of the 20 people who participated in the final selection, only 4 survived to the end, including Tanjiro. The examination committee then announced that the 4 of them had passed and had now officially become the Demon Slayers, even though they were still in the lowest rank, which was the 10th rank. In addition to getting uniforms and weapons, Tanjiro and the others also get a Kasugai crow that will be used to communicate with each other. Afterwards, the committee asked Tanjiro and the others to choose an ore which would later be used to forge the Nichiren sword, a special blade used by the Demon Slayers. It was made specifically for the purpose of slaying demons. The creation of the sword would take at least 10 to 15 days, and the participants who had passed were asked to return to their respective homes and await further instructions. With limping steps, Tanjiro walked back to Mount Sajiri to meet Sakonji and Nezuko. He arrives at the Sakonji residence at night and is immediately greeted by Nezuko, who has woken up from a coma. On the other hand, Sakonji was surprised to see his return, and Nezuko finally woke up after being in a coma for a long time. Sakonji, who couldn't contain the happiness inside him, embraced them in his arms. Meanwhile, Nezuko's condition seems harmless because when she first turned into a demon, Nezuko did not eat human flesh, so she ran out of energy and fell into a coma. However, after sleeping long enough to recover her strength, she finally woke up, coinciding with Tanjiro's return, which officially became the Demon Slayer. 15 days later, a swordsmith named Haganazuka finally arrives at the Sakonji residence to deliver Tanjiro's finished forged sword. Tanjiro invited him to come in and would make tea for him. Still, Haganazuka ignored Tanjiro's words and then explained about the Nichiren sword forged with a special material that can kill demons. Haganazuka explains that the Nichiren sword was forged with scarlet, crimson iron sand and scarlet ore, both of which are found on high mountains like the Sunlight Mountain, which is perpetually bathed in sunlight all throughout the year. As they constantly absorb sunlight, decapitating demons with the Nichiren sword can permanently kill them. Once the weapon slashes their neck bone, their heads and bodies disintegrate into ash in a similar fashion to when exposed to sunlight. However, the holder is required to have a certain amount of skill, or the blade will not change color. After seeing Tanjiro's physical appearance, Haganazuka thought that the blade would turn bright red, which was a sign of good luck. However, after he pulled out his sword, the blade turned pitch black. Not long after, a Kasugai crow arrives at Sakonji's residence and announces Tanjiro's first mission as the Demon Slayer. Tanjiro is asked to go to a town where many girls are rumored to have disappeared without a trace. After confirming that the incident was caused by a demon, the Demon Slayers Corps assigned Tanjiro to eradicate the demon. The next day, Tanjiro, wearing a special uniform for the Demon Slayer, prepares to start his journey to undergo his first mission. Before leaving, Sakonji tells a few things about the Demon Slayer's uniform, which is made of a special material which can protect his body from demon attacks. Besides that, Sakonji said that the Nichiren sword belonging to Tanjiro was black in color and was very rare. Even in his life, Sakonji had never met the Demon Slayer, who had a pitch-black Nichiren sword. Even so, Sakonji firmly believes that Tanjiro has great abilities, can maximize his power with the sword, and find a way to turn Nezuko back into a human. During Tanjiro's participation in the final selection, Sakonji makes a box made of a special material, which Tanjiro can use to carry Nezuko during the day. He is also very grateful for Sakonji's help and attention to him and Nezuko. After a long, tiring journey, Tanjiro finally arrived at his destination, which turned out to be a bustling port city with a beautiful view. When he entered the city, several residents seemed to be talking about a young man named Kazumi, who looked dazed and frustrated after his fiancée, Satoko, suddenly disappeared while they were dating. Upon hearing that, Tanjiro then approached Kazumi and asked about his fiancée. He then takes Tanjiro to where Satoko disappeared, and once there, Tanjiro can smell the demon's scent, though only faintly. Tanjiro begins to track the demon's tracks by relying on his very sharp sense of smell, though by doing so, he becomes the attention of people who find him strange. Accompanied by Kazumi, he also searches until nightfall. Kazumi asked him to rest and continue the search tomorrow. But he says the demon will appear at night, so he must act quickly before the demon abducts the next victim. Elsewhere, a young girl about to enter her room did not notice that a demon was following her. When she finally fell asleep, the demon immediately appeared from under the floor where she was lying, covered her mouth, and drowned her in the ground. Arriving there, Tanjiro plunged his sword into the ground and managed to save the girl before being devoured by the demon, who turned out to be the caster demon who performed a special technique to move places and hide underground or inside walls. After saving the girl, Tanjiro then asked Kazumi to carry her and stay by his side so he could protect them from the demon who might attack again. Sure enough, the demon finally appeared, able to even duplicate itself into three, and attacked him simultaneously. In the middle of the fight, Tanjiro remembers the story that was told by his master about the only demon that can turn humans into demons, and the name of the demon is Muzan Kabutsuji. According to Sakanji, Muzan is probably the demon that killed Tanjiro's family and turned Nezuko into a demon. With that assumption, Muzan must know how to turn Nezuko back into a human. That's why, when fighting against the caster demon, Tanjiro tried to find information about him. However, the caster demon becomes a formidable opponent, so Tanjiro immediately becomes overwhelmed by it. Nezuko suddenly came out of his box and immediately helped him in the fight when he was pressed by the demon's attack. Seeing that, the caster demon was very surprised because a demon slayer could cooperate with a demon to help them quell other demons. When Nezuko was deep in sleep, Sakanji instigated a suggestion to her so that she thought that humans were her family. She must protect them, while the demons are her enemies, and she must kill them. Because of that, Nezuko became very violent when fighting the demon caster and clones. Realizing that Nezuko could be counted on to take care of Kazumi and the girl, Tanjiro then enters the black hole that has been used as an intermediary by the caster demon so that he can escape to another place. After entering there, Tanjiro immediately realized that he was in a lake where the water was murky. Many things belonged to the girls who had become victims of the caster demon, including Satoko. He fights against two caster demons, while on the surface, Nezuko is also facing one remaining demon. He finally managed to defeat the caster demons and return to the surface just before Nezuko was taken down by the demons. Because he had killed two other demons, Tanjiro interrogated the demon to get information about Muzan Kabutsuji. But it seems the demons are reluctant to reveal any information about Muzan Kabutsuji because he had transplanted cells within the demons he directly sired to destroy them if they ever mentioned him by name. On the other hand, Kazumi, who finally found out that his fiancé had died, immediately became very shocked and devastated. Tanjiro tries to calm him down, asking him to let her go and move on with his life. Instead of calming down, Kazumi feels irritated at Tanjiro and assumes that he doesn't understand the loss Kazumi is going through. Kazumi finally realized that Tanjiro had also lost the people he loved because they were killed by a demon, so Kazumi apologized to him for being rude to him. Tanjiro didn't mind this at all. Then, he said goodbye to Kazumi. After that incident, Tanjiro became increasingly angry at Muzan Kabutsuji and the demons who had taken many humans' lives, making them suffer. Not long after, a Kasugai crow came to Tanjiro and informed him of the demons roaming Asakusa, Tokyo, and asked Tanjiro to hurry there. Hearing that, he had no choice but to carry out the mission, even though he was quite tired after fighting the caster demons. Shortly afterwards, Tanjiro finally arrives in Asakusa at night and is astonished to see a city so densely populated yet so modern. Exhausted, he takes a break while enjoying udon noodles in a quiet park. But then, he smelled a demonic scent so overpowering that it made him tremble, and he accidentally dropped the noodle bowl he was holding. Without thinking, Tanjiro immediately grabbed his sword and rushed off to find the demon's whereabouts, leaving Nezuko alone. By relying on his sense of smell, he finally found the demonic figure in question in the crowd, and that demon was none other than Muzan Kabutsuji, the demon he had been looking for. Not long after, Tanjiro immediately knew that the beautiful man in front of him was a demon with a pair of fiery red eyes. However, when he was about to attack Muzan, how surprised he was when he discovered that Muzan was holding a little girl, called him Dad. It didn't stop there, a beautiful woman approached Muzan, and the little girl called her mother. Tanjiro was even more surprised, because the little girl and the beautiful woman with Muzan were human. Tanjiro had no idea that Muzan was a demon disguised as a human and seemed so calm when mingling with them. Knowing that Tanjiro was the demon slayer, Muzan then grabbed a man's neck with his fingernail, and instantly, the man turned into a terrible demon. Suddenly there was a commotion in that place, so Tanjiro immediately took action to secure the demon before it took any lives. While Tanjiro tries to bring down the demon, Muzan takes the opportunity to run away with his wife and his daughter. Knowing that Muzan had run away from him, he became very angry and shouted while shouting Muzan's name while insisting that he would cut off Muzan's head. When the police arrived and were about to beat Tanjiro because he insisted on protecting the man who had turned into a demon, suddenly a demon lady appeared who helped Tanjiro by casting a special spell to trick the humans there. Together with her bodyguard, the demon lady then approached Tanjiro. She told him that she was very impressed with him, who still treated demons like humans, and just like him, the demon lady also harbored the same hatred for Muzan Kibutsuji. On the other hand, after ordering his private driver to take his wife and his daughter home first, Muzan then headed to a narrow alley and killed 3 people there. After that, Muzan ordered 2 of his henchmen to kill a demon slayer wearing Hanafuda earrings, who was none other than Tanjiro. Muzan seems to have bad memories of a man wearing Hanafuda earrings, so he was furious when he saw Tanjiro. Meanwhile, Tanjiro, who had finished his dinner, decided to immediately go to the demon lady's residence with Nezuko. They met the demon lady's bodyguard on the way, who was sent to escort them to her residence, protected by a protective spell. When they finally arrived, the demon lady introduced herself as Tamayo and her male bodyguard, Yashiro. Despite being a demon, Tamayo is also a talented doctor and uses her skills to treat humans and demons who need her help. Tamayo looks calm while treating the woman who was attacked by her husband, even though she is a human. Unable to do anything to help the woman's husband, who had turned into a demon, Tamayo just restrained him in the basement. She then reveals to Tanjiro that she was converted into a demon by Muzan, killing and eating her family, to her horror. Tamayo further altered herself and Yashiro to allow them to survive on a small amount of blood and no flesh. They get human blood with a blood transfusion method carried out very safely, which will not cause any adverse effects to the humans who donate blood. Tamayo said she can also create demons, and Yashiro is her creation. However, she insists on only doing it for dying patients who have no other option and ensures they know the price of becoming a demon. Tanjiro then asked her how to turn a demon back into a human. She said that she is trying to find a cure for demons, but requires the blood of special demons. Soon afterwards, Tamayo enlists help from Tanjiro, who offers some of Nezuko's blood and tries to get blood samples from members of the 12 Kazuki, a special group of demons serving under Muzan. In the middle of their conversation, Tamayo's hideout is destroyed by a female demon named Susumaru, who is Muzan's henchman. Susumaru uses a Temari ball to destroy Tamayo's house, while her partner, a demon named Yahaba, can manipulate the movement and direction of things using the eyeballs on the palms of his hands. As Yashiro prepares to face Susumaru's Temari ball, the ball suddenly changes direction and destroys his head. Seeing that he had been brought down, Tanjiro got up and prepared to fight the demons. On the other hand, Susumaru, who saw the Hanafuda earrings worn by Tanjiro, immediately realized that he was the demon slayer meant by her master, so she became even more excited to kill him. Susumaru then attacked Tanjiro with her Temari ball, but he could stop the attack, although not completely, because the ball could move on its own. Meanwhile, Yashiro, who had recovered himself, seemed so angry that Susumaru and Yahaba had disturbed his precious time with Tamayo. Susumaru ignored his words and revealed that they were members of the 12 Kazuki. After that, Susumaru then showed her real power by growing her arms to 6, and her Temari balls also increased according to the number of her arms. Tanjiro also became very overwhelmed in the face of a barrage of attacks from her. Seeing this, Yashiro then lent his power to Tanjiro so that he could see the arrows to determine the direction of Susumaru's Temari ball attack. After seeing the arrow that Yashiro meant, Tanjiro could easily read the movement of the Temari ball, although he still had a hard time avoiding it. Because of that, he then asked Nezuko to fight against Yahaba, hiding among the trees. When Nezuko managed to land a surprise attack on Yahaba, suddenly, all the arrows controlling the Temari balls disappeared, allowing Tanjiro to easily slash all of the balls at once, including Susumaru's arms. However, Susumaru can regrow her arms in an instant. Knowing that Tanjiro will not win against her, Yashiro orders him to face Yahaba while he fights Susumaru with the help of Nezuko and Tamayo. While fighting Yahaba, Tanjiro can see the scent of the thread that goes to Yahaba's neck, which is his weakness. However, when he is about to attack Yahaba, the eyeballs on his palms can easily break the thread, creating the arrows to brutally attack Tanjiro. Tanjiro immediately became desperate because he could not dodge the arrows that kept attacking him from all directions. After mustering all his strength, Tanjiro finally managed to slash Yahaba's neck. However, the fight didn't stop there, as Yahaba used his remaining strength to attack him barbarously, throwing his body in all directions as if trying to destroy him. Tanjiro must do everything he can to survive the attack, as he is determined not to die before defeating Muzan. Even though he had defeated Yahaba, Tanjiro did not remain silent and tried to go to Nezuko and the others to help them fight Susumaru, ignoring the condition of his body, which was unable to walk and could only crawl slowly. On the other hand, Nezuko, fighting against Susumaru, lost one knee when she tried kicking her Temari ball. Tamayo acted quickly by injecting serum into Nezuko's body to speed up her healing. Seeing Tamayo, Nezuko became reminded of her mother, so she was determined to protect her. When Yashiro started to get overwhelmed by Susumaru's attack, Nezuko, who had recovered from her wounds, rushed over to save him. This time, she could kick the Temari ball and even reverse the attack towards Susumaru, who became very irritated, because it was the first time someone had managed to kick her Temari ball and was not hurt. Nezuko and Susumaru had exchanged kicks for a while until she finally managed to overwhelm Susumaru and could not return her kick. Seeing this, Tamayo then told Yashiro that she had just injected a healing serum which had no effect on increasing the strength, so it can be ascertained that Nezuko used her real power against Susumaru. Even so, Tamayo is still worried about Nezuko because Susumaru hasn't shown her true power yet, so Tamayo decides to intervene and stop the fight as soon as possible. Tamayo then uses her power to trick Susumaru into saying Muzan Kabutsuji's name, which will automatically activate the curse on Susumaru's body, which was implanted by Muzan when he turned her into a demon. Knowing that she had committed a fatal offense, Susumaru became very frightened and apologized to Muzan. However, the curse had already been instilled, and she could not escape it. On the other hand, Tanjiro and the others seemed to shudder in horror at the horrific sight when the curse destroyed Susumaru's body. After that, Tamayo confirmed that Susumaru and Yahaba were not members of the 12 Kazuki, because the members of the 12 Kazuki had a special mark of their membership engraved on their eyes. Tamayo said that Susumaru and Yahaba were two weak demons that only Muzan took advantage of. After taking Susumaru and Nezuko's blood samples for further investigation, Tamayo decides to leave her house because Muzan and his henchmen already know the location. Tamayo, who is very happy because Nezuko has considered her as family, asks Tanjiro for permission so that Nezuko is entrusted to her. However, he insists that no matter what happens and wherever he goes, Nezuko will always be with him, and he will find a way to heal his beloved sister. Even so, Tanjiro thanked Tamayo for her caring and kindness. Tanjiro, who about to head southeast after getting a notification from the Kasugai Crow. On his way, he accidentally passed a yellow-haired young man who was forcing a girl to marry him. The yellow-haired young man kept begging her to marry him, he even crying profusely. Suddenly, a sparrow approached Tanjiro and chirped as if asking him for help. After understanding the situation experienced by the yellow-haired young man, Tanjiro then pulled his robe and scolded him. Seeing Tanjiro's uniform, the young man immediately recognized him as one of the participants in the final selection who successfully passed along with 3 other people, including himself. The young man then introduced himself as Zenitsu Agatsuma. Although Zenitsu is an extremely cowardly young man, who was forced to join the Demon Slayer Corps to pay for his debts, he is actually quite great, having successfully passed the deadly test. Tanjiro and Zenitsu then decide to travel together, until finally, a Kasugai Crow approaches them and asks them to hurry to the location where they will carry out a mission together. Tanjiro and Zenitsu finally arrive at a fairly large old house. There, they met 2 younger siblings who looked scared. Tanjiro then calmed them down and asked them to tell him what had happened. The older brother, Soichi, said that some time ago, their older brother, Kiyoshi, was kidnapped by a demon, and they followed his blood trail to the house. Hearing this, Tanjiro also plans to enter the house and invites Zenitsu. He then leaves the wooden box he was carrying with Soichi and his little sister, Teruko, saying that the box is more valuable than his own life and that something in the box can protect them. But then, Soichi and Teruko followed Tanjiro and Zenitsu into the house because they were very scared when Tanjiro's wooden box made a creaking sound. Soon after, the house suddenly shook violently, making Zenitsu even more panicky. After the shaking finally stopped, Tanjiro and Teruko were separated from Zenitsu and Soichi instead. Tanjiro immediately realized that the sound of the drum beating made the house room change, thus separating them from each other. While trying to understand the situation, he meets a demon named Kyogai with the drums embedded into his body. On the other hand, a panicked and frightened Zenitsu tries to find a way out of the house. But because the rooms in the house keep changing with the beat of the drums, they also find it difficult to find the right way out, until he meets a man wearing a boar's head mask named Inosuke Hashibara. Zenitsu immediately realized that Inosuke was a demon slayer, even though he was shirtless. When he tried to ask Inosuke for help, he ran away from him. Meanwhile, Tanjiro, who had understood the direction of the movement of the room that changed with the beat of Kyogai's drum, then prepared to attack the demon. However, after the next drum beat, Inosuke fell into the room and attacked him. Like Zenitsu, Tanjiro immediately realizes that Inosuke is the demon slayer and tries to convince him to cooperate against the demon. But Inosuke didn't want to listen to his words and continued attacking him. On the other hand, Kyogai, who was very annoyed with the intruders who broke into his house, beat the drum in his stomach, creating powerful air slashes that could slash his opponent's body. At the same time, Zenitsu and Soichi seemed to be running frantically to avoid a terrible demon who wanted to prey on them. When they were pressed by the demon, Zenitsu, a coward, fell asleep just like that. Seeing this, the demon became overjoyed, thinking he would be able to prey on them easily. However, when the demon stuck out his tongue to catch Soichi, his tongue was suddenly cut off, and Zenitsu was back on his feet, though not yet fully conscious. Zenitsu, who mastered the thunder-breathing technique, can easily slash the demon with just one attack. Meanwhile, Inosuke, who tried to find Kyogai when the room had changed, instead met another demon with a stout build, which he could easily defeat. On the other hand, Tanjiro realizes that someone else has the same drum as Kyogai, so the room in the house changes again. While walking through room after room in the house, Tanjiro and Teruko finally found Teruko's older brother, Kiyoshi, who was kidnapped by Kyogai some time ago. Kiyoshi tells Tanjiro that at least 3 demons are in the house, including Kyogai, and they are fighting with each other for him. He turns out to have rare and precious blood, so that a demon who manages to eat him will get the power equivalent to preying on 100 ordinary humans. During the battle of the demons, one of the demons managed to injure Kyogai until one of the drums detached from his body. Kiyoshi immediately took the drum to protect himself from the attacks of the demons. Knowing that Kyogai was approaching them, Tanjiro asked Kiyoshi and Teruko to look after each other and rely on Kyogai's drums as protection until he came to take them both out of there. Although the wounds he received from the battle against Yahaba have not fully healed, Tanjiro is determined to defeat Kyogai to save Teruko and her brothers. He shook off the pain all over his body and put all his strength into defeating Kyogai, who was once a member of the 12 Kazuki. Because of that, Tanjiro immediately became overwhelmed by Kyogai's quick and insistent attacks. Fortunately, he remembers the advice from his master regarding the very flexible water-breathing technique, so Tanjiro can dodge the attack and finds Kyogai's weak spot. Tanjiro immediately took advantage of the gap in Kyogai's attack and pointed his sword at Kyogai's neck until the demon's head was severed from his body. After defeating Kyogai, he immediately took a sample of the demon's blood and sent it to Tamayo through a cat. When he was about to leave the house with Kiyoshi and Teruko, Tanjiro suddenly smelled blood, so he ran toward the door. How surprised he was when he saw Zenitsu, who went to great lengths to protect his wooden box from Inosuke, who tried to destroy it. Zenitsu did this because he heard Tanjiro say that the wooden box was more valuable than his own life. When Inosuke was about to stab Zenitsu with his sword, Tanjiro immediately took action to save him and then got into a fight with Inosuke, who was very stubborn. Inosuke had a pretty great fighting ability, so he boasted that he had never lost to anyone. Tanjiro, who was very annoyed with Inosuke for attacking his fellow demon slayers, slammed his own head into Inosuke's. The attack turned out to be successful in making Inosuke stagger until his mask came off. Zenitsu looked so surprised when he saw Inosuke's face, which he thought was very handsome, still quite young, and maybe the same age as them. Inosuke looked overjoyed because, for the first time in his life, he was defeated by someone. But then, he fell unconscious due to a mild concussion. Not long after, a Kasugai crow appeared in front of them and asked the 3 demon slayers to follow him. Tanjiro and his companions finally arrive at a big house with a wisteria flower symbol on its gate. The Kasugai crow then told the 3 to rest in the house because the house was intended for the injured demon slayers so that they could recover quickly. Tanjiro and his companions were greeted by an old woman named Hisa, who then prepared food and clean clothes for the three of them during their stay in the house. One night, Zenitsu asks about the contents of the wooden box that Tanjiro always carries. From the beginning, he knew that the contents of the wooden box were a demon. Even though he doesn't know why Tanjiro brought a demon with him, because the demon is very precious to Tanjiro, Zenitsu still protects the box from Inosuke. Tanjiro is very grateful that Zenitsu chose to protect his wooden box, even though he already knows a demon is inside. From the start, he knew that Zenitsu was very kind and trustworthy because he could smell someone's aura. While at the rest house, he becomes closer to Zenitsu and Inosuke even though they have very different personalities from one another. Long story short, the three of them finally recovered as usual and prepared to carry out their next mission on Mount Nadagumo. However, in the middle of the journey, Zenitsu, who was very scared to see Mount Nadagumo from a distance, chose not to continue the journey. Not wanting to bother, Tanjiro and Inosuke left Zenitsu and rushed to Mount Nadagumo. When they were about to enter the forest, they met an injured demon slayer and asked for help. However, before they had time to help him, suddenly, he was lifted into the air by an invisible thread. Tanjiro immediately finds out that the one controlling the thread is a demon they must kill. In the forest, they meet a demon slayer, who then tells about him and his group who received a mission to eliminate the demons that inhabit Mount Nadagumo. However, when the demon slayers entered the forest, they fought until several of them were killed. Shortly afterwards, Tanjiro and Inosuke immediately realized someone was approaching them, and it turned out that they were the demon slayers still alive. When battling the demon slayers, Tanjiro immediately realized they were being remotely controlled. Several small spiders were seen crawling on Tanjiro's arms when the young man was about to be controlled by the demon. However, with his keen sense of smell, Tanjiro managed to kill the spiders and thwart the demon's efforts. But then, a very strong smell emerges, which dulls his sense of smell, thus overwhelming him quite a bit. During the fight, a spider male demon named Rue appears in front of Tanjiro and Inosuke, who threaten to kill them if the demon slayers continue to disturb his family. Tanjiro immediately found out that Rue wasn't the demon controlling the demon slayers, so he then asked Inosuke for help to find the demon that controlled them. With the beast breathing technique he mastered, Inosuke could easily find the spider demon who controlled the demon slayers, who was assumed to be the mother demon by Rue. On the way to Mother Demon's place, Tanjiro and Inosuke are blocked by a spider web that makes it difficult for them to move forward. Not only that, they still have to fight against the demon slayers, controlled by the demon. He manages to find a way to defeat the demon slayers without killing them. But this only angered the mother demon, who controlled them and slaughtered the demon slayers in front of Tanjiro and Inosuke. Not long after, a headless demon appeared and charged at them. When Tanjiro and Inosuke engage in a fierce battle with the headless demon, the mother demon then uses the opportunity to try to control Inosuke. Seeing that, Tanjiro also asked Inosuke to think clearly so that he could be released from the spider's entanglement. With solid cooperation, they finally managed to defeat the headless demon. Soon afterwards, Inosuke throws Tanjiro's body up so he can find Mother Demon's location. After finally dealing with the Mother Demon, Tanjiro immediately used the water-breathing technique and managed to defeat her. Zenitsu, who was previously reluctant to carry out the mission, finally deciding to enter the forest to help Tanjiro and Inosuke. While walking through the forest alone, Zenitsu was surprised by the appearance of a spider with a human head, causing him to run. Not only that, but Zenitsu also found a house floating in the air, and around the house, many human bodies had spider parts. A large spider with a human head suddenly appears and tells him he has been hit by a deadly poison. The big spider was a demon assumed to be the brother demon by Rue. The brother demon can turn humans into spiders with its poison. Since Zenitsu had been exposed to the poison, he would turn into a spider in 30 minutes. Knowing that he will soon turn into a spider with a human head, he becomes increasingly panicked and scared until he finally becomes unconscious. But then he got up and fought fiercely against Brother Demon. Meanwhile, after defeating the Mother Demon, Tanjiro and Inosuke encounter another demon, who runs scared when she sees the two of them. The demon, who was in the form of a little girl, was assumed to be the sister demon by Rue. When Inosuke tries to catch her, she screams and calls out to the huge and terrifying father demon. Tanjiro and Inosuke were then involved in a fierce battle with the father demon, although their resistance was in vain because their swords could not injure his body in the slightest. Tanjiro tries to slash a tree to make it difficult for him to move. Unfortunately, with his extremely formidable physical strength, Father Demon lifted the trunk of the huge tree and slammed it into Tanjiro's body until he was thrown far from the location of their fight. After that, Tanjiro tries to find Inosuke's whereabouts. But suddenly, he heard a girl's groan, so he rushed to the source of the sound, which was none other than Sister Demon kneeling in front of Rue. Although Rue thought that the spider demons were his family, his treatment of Sister Demon did not reflect their family relationship, because he did not hesitate to hurt Sister Demon. Tanjiro doesn't necessarily let Rue act as he pleases, even towards his fellow demons. Because of that, he becomes very annoyed that Tanjiro interferes in his family's affairs, even though he is just a lowly human who should be their prey. Elsewhere, Inosuke, still fighting the Father Demon, manages to cut off his hand and becomes arrogant. But then, he could regrow his arm instantly, even turning into a demon that was far more terrifying than before. Seeing that, Inosuke immediately became desperate. What's worse? Both of his swords broke when he tried to slash Father Demon's body. Inosuke could only let himself receive a barrage of attacks from the Father Demon. In the end, when he almost gave up because Father Demon was preparing to kill him, a demon slayer appeared, who was none other than Ju Tomioka. With one slash of his sword, Ju, one of the elite members of Hashira, can cut the arm of the Father Demon and then kill him. On the other hand, Zenitsu, who had succeeded in defeating Brother Demon, couldn't resist the effects of the poison in his body starting to react. Zenitsu, who had given up on turning into a spider demon, was then surprised by the appearance of one of Hashira's members, a young woman named Shinobu Kocho, who was Ju's teammate in dealing with the demons on Mount Natagumo. She immediately injects the antidote into Zenitsu's body, so he can be saved. Meanwhile, Tanjiro, involved in a fierce battle with Rue, became increasingly overwhelmed when his Nichiren sword suddenly broke. Tanjiro was choked by Rue's barrage of attacks until finally, Nezuko got out of the wooden box and immediately protected her brother from the deadly attack. Seeing Nezuko desperately protecting Tanjiro, Rue couldn't understand why a demon slayer had a family relationship with a demon, and the demon protected him instead. Impressed by her power, Rue is increasingly ambitious to kill Tanjiro and make her a part of his family. Tanjiro became very angry and determined to defeat Rue even though his sword had been broken. Rue then reveals himself as the low-ranking member of the 12 Kazuki and unleashes his true power against Tanjiro. Rue then holds Nezuko hostage, forcing Tanjiro to fight against him to death. He probably thought Tanjiro would just give up because their strength was not comparable. However, Tanjiro remains determined to save Nezuko, even at the cost of his life. When Tanjiro almost gave up because all his attacks didn't work against Rue, he suddenly remembered what his late father had said about the fire-breathing technique. Tanjiro tries to do the fire-breathing technique his father taught him when he was a child and finally manages to break Rue's attack. On the other hand, Nezuko, held hostage by Rue in a spider's thread, was awakened by her mother through a dream, so she then got up and helped Tanjiro's resistance defeat Rue. Even so, Rue had not been completely defeated because his headless body could still move freely, even reattaching his head. Rue, who was getting angry because of the resistance from the Kamadu siblings, then used his flagship technique to kill them at once. Suddenly, Ju arrived there and easily broke Rue's lethal attack and beat the demon to death. However, after Rue and his family demon have been defeated, a new problem arises when Shinobu tries to kill Nezuko, who is a demon. Tanjiro, who was seriously injured, could only protect his sister with his body because he could not stop Shinobu's sudden attack. Seeing Ju trying to protect Tanjiro and his sister, who is a demon, Shinobu becomes curious about the relationship between them. Ju then tells Tanjiro to take Nezuko away while he restrains Shinobu. She would not hesitate to fight Ju if he prevented her from killing the demon. She then rushes after Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Ju, who wants to stop her. On the other hand, Tanjiro, trying to escape as far as possible from Shinobu, was suddenly attacked by a girl named Kaneo Tsuyuri, a demon slayer. When she was about to kill Nezuko, Tanjiro pulled her cape to knock her down and told Nezuko to run away immediately. Kaneo, annoyed at being dropped, then hit Tanjiro on the head until he fainted. After that, she tried to chase after Nezuko, whose body was shrinking and turned into a child. At the same time, Ju manages to lock up Shinobu's movement, who keeps questioning why he protects the demon. When she tries to put up a fight, a Kasugai crow appears and announces orders from headquarters to capture Tanjiro and his demon sister, Nezuko, alive and bring them to headquarters. Hearing the order, Ju and Shinobu finally stopped their quarrel and rushed back to the headquarters. Elsewhere, Zenitsu, who had previously been injected with the antidote, appears fully awake and becomes confused as his body is wrapped in cloth. Meanwhile, Inosuke, who managed to survive the fight against the father demon, seemed exhausted, so he could only surrender when a group of people belonging to the Kikushi lifted his body and carried him away. The Kikushi are a brigade responsible for different tasks, ranging from providing services to the Demon Slayer Corps members to cleaning up the battlefield after demon attacks. The next day, Tanjiro, who had been taken to the Demon Slayer's headquarters, finally woke up from his stupor and was very surprised when he saw Shinobu and the Hashira members. They were standing in front of him. The Hashira are the 9 overall most powerful members and combatants in the entirety of the Demon Slayer Corps. They are often regarded as the most skilled swordsmen among all Demon Slayers, protecting them against more dangerous threats that cannot be handled by any other Demon Slayer. Therefore, their existence literally sustains the entire organization. The Hashira, by their great strength, are the highest-ranking members in the organization. When Shinobu said that Tanjiro would be prisoned for his crimes, which were considered to have conspired with a demon, one of Hashira's members, named Kaijuro Rengoku, nicknamed the Flame Hashira, confirmed that Tanjiro was definitely found guilty, so there was no need for a trial. Shinobu, who is the insect Hashira, then asks Tanjiro to tell him the reason for protecting a demon, even though Tanjiro is the demon slayer. Shortly afterwards, Tanjiro explained everything to the Hashira members, even trying to convince them that Nezuko had never attacked or harmed a human. He also said that Nezuko never even drank blood or ate any human flesh. However, Abanayagiro, the serpent Hashira, and the rest of the Hashira did not believe his words. In fact, Sanemi Shinazugawa, the Wind Hashira, who was annoyed at Tanjiro for having dared to violate the rules of the Demon Slayer Corps, took the wooden box where Nezuko was. He drew his sword at the wooden box, which pierced and stabbed Nezuko's body. Seeing this, Tanjiro immediately got up and slammed his own head into Sanemi's head until he collapsed. Not long after, the Demon Slayer Corps leader, Kagaya Ubuyashiki, arrives and informs him of a request from the former Water Hashira, Sakanji Urokadaki, who is also Tanjiro's mentor. Sakanji explains that Nezuko has unparalleled mental strength and rationality from the human side. Even if she was hungry, Nezuko would never hurt a human, let alone prey on them. Sakanji and Ju turned out to have guaranteed with their own lives that Nezuko was completely harmless to mankind, so Sakanji begged Kagaya to let Nezuko live with her brother, Tanjiro. Kagaya is about to decide to keep Tanjiro and Nezuko alive. Especially after knowing that Tanjiro had come face to face with Muzan Kabutsuji, even Muzan ordered his henchmen to kill him. Hearing this, the Hashira members were very surprised, because they had never seen Muzan Kabutsuji, let alone face him face to face. Even so, Sanemi refuses to let Nezuko live and plans to prove to them that she is still a human-eating demon. He even dared to slash his arm to lure Nezuko out of her hideout. Seeing human blood flowing in front of her, Nezuko remained unaffected and instead remembered her good memories with her family. In her mind, all humans are her family, so she must not hurt them but must protect them. Because of that, Nezuko chose to turn away so as not to attack Sanemi. Seeing this, Kagaya becomes convinced that she will not harm humans and asks Tanjiro to prove to everyone that she can protect humans, even though she's a demon. After that, Tanjiro and Nezuko are taken to Shinobu's house, the Butterfly Mansion, so he can recover with special treatment from the Kocho family, which is famous for being very efficacious. There, he finally reunites with Zenitsu and Inosuke, who also undergo intensive treatment after their fight against the spider demons. Tanjiro was happy and grateful, because he could finally safely meet his friends again. 2 weeks later, they prepared for rehabilitation training under the guidance of Kaneo and the female attendants of the mansion. Over time, they managed to master 2 of the 3 practice sessions quite well. However, they haven't been able to beat Kaneo in her training session because she has excellent reflexes and speed. Zenitsu and Inosuke immediately became lazy to practice, thinking that they would not be able to beat Kaneo. However, not so with Tanjiro, who tries to find a way to defeat her. After getting a little advice from some of the female attendants, he finally managed to find a way to defeat her. On the other hand, Zenitsu and Inosuke undergo physical training under Shinobu's guidance to match Tanjiro, who has become much stronger after sparring with Kaneo. Sometime later, Tanjiro and his friends have fully recovered and can resume their activities as the Demon Slayers. Elsewhere, following Rui's death, the remaining lower ranks are summoned into an interdimensional castle by Muzan. They face Muzan's wrath, who informs them of Rui's death and denounces the lower ranks as weak before killing them. However, Muzan spares Enmu, lower rank, the closest strongest demon to the upper ranks, and is strongly devoted to him over his macabre personality and worship of him. Muzan gives him ample blood for strength and adds that he can attain more by specifically killing Tanjiro. Meanwhile, a Kasugai crow tells Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke about their new mission to the Mugen train, where 40 people have disappeared. Afterwards, Tanjiro farewells the people of the mansion, including Kaneo. He also thanks Ju for his dedication to protecting Nezuko. Then, the three arrive at the train station, but Inosuke causes a commotion, attracting the police. They are forced to flee due to demon slayers not being recognized by the government, unaware that demons exist. They jump onto the train as it leaves, with Kaijuro and Lower One on board. The anime ended. Thank you for watching this video.